Everyone loves a loudmouth until the gym goes dead quiet. When a tattooed purple belt named Rex choked a man's wife during a light jiu-jitsu drill and held the choke long after she tapped, he thought he was untouchable. He didn't realize her quiet husband wasn't just a corporate security auditor, he was a former Navy SEAL counter-terror operator. What happened next took exactly 1 second. The man standing over Rex looked like any reluctant husband dragged in for the free trial. For 3 years, he had built a life of deliberate quiet, corporate audits, weekend deck repairs, and watching his wife Lena rediscover confidence on those very mats. But beneath the worn sweats and ball cap was a past the civilian world rarely sees. A decade of hostage rescue, close quarters combat, and counter-terror operations with no public records. He had locked that man away. He had promised Lena he would never let him out. But when Rex cinched a standing guillotine on her, that promise snapped. 3 years earlier, Ethan Vance walked away from the only world he truly knew. Not the corporate world he now inhabited, but the one that had shaped him since his early 20s, a decade of direct action missions, midnight extractions, and rooms where silence meant survival. He had been a Navy SEAL, then quietly recruited into a counter-terror unit so dark it never appeared in any budget, any record, or any funeral program. His specialty was hostage rescue. He had pulled men, women, and children out of places that were not on maps. He had killed people in close quarters, some so close he could smell the tobacco on their breath. And when he finally came home, he did what many men like him do. He locked that part of himself in a vault and tried to build a normal life. That life was Lena. She had not known him during the worst years. They met at a mutual friend's barbecue 2 years after his final deployment. He was working corporate security audits, dry, predictable work that required reading spreadsheets instead of room diagrams. She was a graphic designer with a laugh that made him forget the sound of rotor wash. They married quietly, bought a house with a peeling deck, and settled into a rhythm that felt almost too good to be true. Ethan did not talk about his past. He did not keep memorabilia. He did not own a gun. He wanted to be a husband, not a weapon. But the world has a way of testing the promises we make to ourselves. The first crack came on a Tuesday night in a parking garage. Lena had worked late. She was walking to her car when a man in a hooded jacket stepped out from between 2 vehicles and began following her, matching her pace, saying nothing. She quickened her step. He quickened his. She hit the panic button on her key fob. The alarm blared, and the man vanished into the stairwell. She sat in the locked car for 20 minutes, hands shaking, unable to drive. Nothing had actually happened, but the fear was real. She told Ethan that night that she never wanted to feel that helpless again. So she joined a jiu-jitsu gym. It was a place called Northline Grappling and Fitness, a converted warehouse on the edge of their town, with mats that smelled of sweat and disinfectant, and a neon sign that flickered in the rain. Lena signed up for the Women's Self-Defense Foundations class. She was diligent, eager, and a little awkward. She learned to shrimp, to bridge, to fall without breaking her wrists. She was not a natural athlete, but she was determined. And for the first few months, it worked. Her confidence grew. She carried herself differently. Ethan was proud of her. The problem was a man named Rex. Rex was a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which in most gyms means he was competent, but not exceptional. At Northline, however, Rex behaved like he owned the place. He was loud, heavily tattooed, and built like a nightclub bouncer. He had been training for 8 years and had amassed a loyal following of younger students who hung on his every word. He treated the mats as his personal kingdom, and he was particularly fond of demonstrating his pressure control on beginners. The coaches tolerated him because he brought in members and gave the gym a rugged reputation. Some students worshipped him, others avoided eye contact. Lena was one of the latter. From the moment Lena stepped onto the mat, Rex targeted her. Not because she was skilled or threatening, but because she was quiet, polite, and would not complain. He would pick her for demonstrations, smirking as he wedged his forearm under her chin and explained to the class how to finish the choke. He would hold submissions just a little too long, release just a little too late, and then laugh it off as tough love. The first time she tapped, he kept squeezing for 2 extra seconds. The second time, 3, the third time, she felt panic rise, but she still said nothing. She did not want to be seen as weak. She did not want to be the woman who cried on the mat. Ethan noticed her coming home with small bruises on her neck, on her wrists, along her ribs. He asked if everything was okay. She said yes, that it was normal, that jiu-jitsu was a contact sport. He trusted her. He did not want to be the overprotective husband. He knew the difference between discomfort and injury. He had lived in both worlds. But then came the night that changed everything. It was a Thursday. Lena had been training for 6 months. The class was working on standing guillotine defenses. Rex, as usual, chose Lena as his dummy. He told the class to watch how a real choke is applied, and before Lena could even brace, he wrapped his arm around her neck, dragged her forward, and clamped down. She tapped immediately, 3 distinct slaps against his bicep. He ignored them. He kept cinching. The room went quiet. Lena's vision began to tunnel. Her legs buckled. She felt a pressure building in her head like a balloon about to burst. 10 full seconds. Then Rex released her with a laugh, saying, "That's how you know it works." She stumbled backward, gasping, her neck sporting a raw red ring of broken capillaries. No one said anything. The coach looked away. Lena came home that night, trembling, her voice raw. She told Ethan everything. She showed him the bruise. She described how she had tapped and still he had not let go, how she thought she was going to die on a mat in a strip mall gym. And as she spoke, something inside Ethan Vance woke from a 3-year sleep. It was not rage. It was something colder, more precise. It was the same calm that would settle over him before a mission, when every distraction fell away and all that remained was the objective. He did not raise his voice. He did not punch a wall. He simply said, "I'll take care of it." The next night, Ethan walked into Northline Grappling and Fitness, wearing worn sweats, a faded ball cap pulled low, and the look of a reluctant husband dragged in for the free trial. He had deliberately left his military identification at home. He had no patches, no tactical gear, no visible scars. He was just a middle-aged guy with a dad bod and a polite smile. Rex spotted him from across the room and smirked. The class circled up. Rex clapped his hands and announced that they had a new visitor. "Perfect timing," he said, his eyes glittering. "Let me show you pressure control." And then he lunged. To the students watching from the edge of the mats, Rex's lunge looked like the beginning of another one of his infamous demonstrations. He stepped in, grabbed the back of Ethan's head with his left hand, and pulled down hard, trying to snap the older man's neck into the V of his elbow. The standing guillotine was Rex's favorite move. He had used it on beginners for years, always squeezing a little too long, always smiling when they tapped. But Ethan Vance did not tap. He did not struggle. He did not even change the expression on his face. As Rex's arm closed around his throat, Ethan's left hand came up and caught Rex's wrist. At the same instant, his right hand shot inside the crook of Rex's elbow. He stepped back, turned his hip, and slipped out of the choke with a speed that did not match his worn sweats or his gray-flecked hair. To the class, it looked like a blur. To Rex, it felt like the floor had been pulled out from under him. Before Rex could recover, Ethan was behind him. He wrapped his right arm around Rex's neck and locked his hand behind Rex's head. He did not squeeze with all his strength. He did not need to. The pressure was surgical, focused on the carotid arteries, just enough to gray out Rex's vision without causing permanent damage. Rex's eyes bulged. His hands clawed weakly at Ethan's forearm. His mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled onto a dock. Ethan leaned forward until his lips were an inch from Rex's ear. What he said did not carry past Rex's own head, but the effect was immediate. Rex's arms went limp. His knees buckled. He collapsed to the mat, not as a fighter taking a fall, but as a body whose brain had temporarily shut off. The entire sequence had lasted less than 4 seconds. For a long moment, the gym was silent except for the hum of the overhead lights. Then someone dropped a phone. The clatter skittered across the rubber flooring, and every head in the room flinched. Rex lay on his side, his chest heaving, his eyes half open and unfocused. Ethan stepped back, adjusting the sleeve of his sweatshirt. He looked down at the man who had tormented his wife, and he did not smile. He did not gloat. He simply turned to the assistant instructor, a wiry man in his early 20s whose face had gone pale. "Roll him onto his side," Ethan said. "Keep his airway clear. He'll be disoriented for a couple of minutes. No hospital needed." The assistant nodded, too frightened to speak. That was when the gym's owner shoved through the ring of students. Ron Castellano was a 54-year-old black belt with a gut that had outgrown his gi and a knee that clicked when he walked. He had inherited Northline grappling and fitness from his brother-in-law and had spent the last 6 years trying to turn it into a brand. Rex was part of that brand. He was the resident enforcer, the man whose highlight clips were posted every week with hashtags like "Heart of a Lion" and "No Excuses." Now the brand was lying on the mat, gasping like a drowning man. "Who the hell are you?" Ron demanded, his voice cracking. Ethan picked up the ball cap he had dropped before the demonstration. He dusted it off and placed it back on his head. "Just a guy who came in for the free trial," he said. Ron's face flushed. "You can't just assault my instructor and walk out of here. I'm calling the police." Ethan did not raise his voice. He took one step closer to Ron, and the older man instinctively stepped back. "You saw exactly what happened," Ethan said. "He grabbed me. He tried to choke me. If you call the police, I'll invite them to pull your security footage. Then I'll ask every parent in this room whether their kid has ever tapped early under Rex. And I'll tell them what happened to my wife last night." Ron's mouth opened, then closed. From the back of the group, a voice cut through the silence. A young woman with tape on her fingers and a blue belt tied around her waist stepped forward. Her name was Maya. She had been training at Northline for 2 years. "He's right," she said, her voice unsteady but clear. "Rex held a choke on me for 8 seconds after I tapped. I complained to you. You told me I was being dramatic." Another student, a lanky teenager with braces, nodded. "He did it to me too. On my first day." Then another voice. Then another. It was not a wave of shouts. It was a low murmur of quiet, terrified agreement. Rex had been the gym's secret shame for years, but no one had spoken because they thought everyone else admired him. Now, in the space of one sentence, the spell had broken. Ethan turned away from Ron and walked toward the cubby area. He passed the small table where new members signed waivers. A teenager by the water fountain was still holding a phone, its camera pointed directly at Ethan. The red recording light glowed. Ethan heard the faint sound of a live stream notification. He did not stop. He did not look into the lens. He simply pushed through the double doors and walked out into the cool night air. He sat in the truck for a full minute before turning the key. His hands were steady. His breathing was slow. Somewhere in the back of his mind, the old voice was already running the after-action review. He had used real speed. He had used a real technique. He had revealed to anyone with training that he was not just a middle-aged husband. And someone had filmed it. For a moment, his memory pulled him backward. He remembered a stairwell in a city that was never named in a briefing. A target had grabbed a woman, held a blade to her throat. Ethan had come from behind, exactly the same way, applying the same pressure. The man had gone limp in under 5 seconds. The woman had been pulled free. That night, no one cheered. There were no cameras. There was only silence. Now there were cameras everywhere. By the time he pulled into the driveway, the video was already circulating. The grainy footage showed a man in a ball cap stepping behind a larger opponent and dropping him with a choke. The caption read, "New dad destroys gym bully in 4 seconds." Within an hour, it had 40,000 views. Within 2 hours, someone on a mixed martial arts forum had slowed the video down and posted, "This guy's footwork and grip switch is not normal. That's military or something else." A former fighter wrote, "Look at the way he collapses the space. That's not sport jiu-jitsu. That's close quarters combat. Where did this guy come from? Ethan did not see the comments at first. He walked into the house and found Lena sitting at the kitchen table, her phone face down. She had been crying. "Ethan," she said, her voice raw. "I saw the video." He opened his mouth to explain, but she held up her hand. "One of my friends from work sent it to me." She said, "Isn't this your husband? It's already everywhere." Ethan sat down across from her. "I handled it." Lena looked at him, and for the first time in their 3 years together, there was something unfamiliar in her eyes. Not fear, not anger, something closer to the realization that she had been sharing a home with a man she did not fully know. "You didn't just handle it," she said. "You moved like a man who has done that 1,000 times." Ethan said nothing. Lena swallowed. "I knew you were a SEAL. I knew there were parts of your past you couldn't talk about. But I thought those parts were over. I thought you worked security audits and fixed the deck and had nightmares you kept behind a door." She looked at the phone. "Then I see a video of you folding a man twice your size with one move. And the internet is asking who you are." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Lena, who are you?" she asked. Her voice was not loud, but it filled the kitchen. "Who are you really?" Ethan had no answer, because the truth was that for 3 years, he had been trying to become the man she thought she married. But the man in the video had never left. He had just been waiting. Before he could speak, his phone began to vibrate against the table. Not once, 3 times. The screen lit up with 3 words from a number he had not seen in 3 years. "Call me now." Ethan stepped into the backyard, closed the sliding glass door behind him, and made the call. The voice on the other end did not say hello. It said, "Tell me you used a burner." It belonged to Owen Brandt, a man Ethan had not spoken to since a rooftop in northern Iraq 3 years earlier. Owen had been the unit's intelligence liaison, the one who ran the handlers and made sure the operators never existed on paper. If Owen was calling now, it was not to catch up. "I didn't use anything," Ethan said. "I used my personal phone." "Why?" There was a long pause, then the sound of a lighter clicking. Owen took a breath. "Because 3 hours ago, a private intelligence contractor down in Austin ran your face through a facial recognition program. The video from that gym hit their servers through a subscriber upload. Their system flagged a high confidence match against a file that was supposed to have been sealed under a red action." Ethan closed his eyes. "I was never in the system." "Neither were the rest of us," Owen said. "That didn't stop a leak. 2 years ago, a classified after-action summary from an operation called Hollow Frame was pulled and dumped on the dark web. It didn't have names, it had photographs. Photographs that were supposed to be destroyed. Yours was one of them." Ethan felt the air change around him. Hollow Frame. He remembered the operation. A counter-terror extraction in Mosul, the kind that never made the news because the ground was too politically complex. He had been one of the men who went into the building. Not every man came out. The target, a facilitator named Idris Haddad, had been killed in the crossfire. His brother, a financier named Salim Haddad, had escaped before the team could reach the compound. Salim had spent the last 3 years searching for the men who killed his brother. Until tonight, he had been searching for ghosts. "He's seen it," Ethan said. "Salim has seen it. He's not just salivating," Owen said. "He's already posted a bounty, not in his own name. It's routed through a middleman in Turkey named Aslan. The figure is $750,000 for the identity and location of the man in the video, the one they call the ghost." Ethan swallowed. "I'm not a ghost. I'm a suburban security auditor." "Not anymore," Owen said. "Listen to me carefully. The video has been mirrored on at least 9 platforms. The original live stream was taken down, but not before a user in Canada captured 30 frames of high-resolution stills. They pulled your face, your gait, your hand positioning. And then they pulled your truck license plate from the gym's parking lot camera. You know what they can do with a plate." Ethan walked to the fence line and looked down the dark street. No unusual cars. No idling engines. But his training was already scanning, cataloging, porch lights, security cameras, lines of sight. If they have the plate, they have the address, Ethan said. They've had the address for an hour, Owen said. Now you understand why I told you to get a burner. Ethan turned and looked back through the window. Lena was still sitting at the kitchen table, her phone dark in front of her. She was not looking at him. She was staring at the wall with an expression he had seen only once before, on the face of a hostage after she realized the door was locked from the outside. He had never wanted Lena to wear that expression. Now he had put it there. Owen continued. There's more. Of course there's more. Salim didn't just post the bounty. He sent it to a private contractor, a former French Foreign Legion merc named Gerard Voss. Voss runs a loose network of freelance operators in Europe and the Middle East, mostly surveillance, sometimes worse. He's not going to send a team into the United States tonight. That would be too loud. But he will send someone to verify the address, run plates, and sit on your house. Within 48 hours, he'll know your routine, your wife's routine, and your weak points. Ethan's hand tightened around the phone. He forced himself to breathe slowly. You're telling me this is not about a jiu-jitsu bully anymore. The bully is the least of your problems, Owen said. The police in your town have also started to gather a file. Rex, the man you put down, woke up with a mild concussion and a bruised trachea. He's telling everyone he was attacked without provocation. His girlfriend is saying a stranger came into the gym and assaulted him. The assistant instructor backed her up. The gym owner, Ron, is scared of lawsuits, so he's deciding whether to cooperate with the narrative. It doesn't help that half the internet now thinks you were the aggressor. Ethan let out a slow breath. I have the security footage. No, Owen said. You have memories. The gym's camera footage cuts out for the 10 seconds before you stepped onto the mat. A small dead zone near the locker room. It was a maintenance issue. But the father of a kid who trains there was live streaming from a different angle. His video captured the whole thing, but he deleted it this afternoon after a lawyer reached out on behalf of the gym. He's afraid of getting sued. You know how this works. The truth doesn't matter. The narrative does. Ethan looked at the sky. The stars were faint behind the glow of streetlights. The quiet life he had built was fracturing one pain at a time. First the gym, then the video, then the leak, now a bounty. And Lena was inside, terrified not of the man who choked her, but of the man she had married. I need to move her, Ethan said. She can't stay here. Owen was silent for a moment. There's a house in the mountains, north of Durango. It's owned by a shell company we used for debriefings. I'll send you the address. It's clean. But you need to leave tonight, and you can't take the truck. They have the plate. Ethan ran a hand over his face. I don't run. I know. That's why Salim will find you. And when he does, he won't just come for you. He'll come for the woman you love. He'll use her to make you watch. A coldness spread through Ethan's chest. It was not fear. It was the old machine waking fully, the one that had kept him alive in places where mercy was a liability. Then I'll finish what we started in Mosul, he said. You can't do that alone. I won't be alone after he finds me. Owen sighed, the sound heavy through the speaker. There's one more thing you need to know. The leak that exposed your face? It wasn't accidental. Someone inside the agency pulled that file and sold it. And the person who bought it was the same middleman who posted the bounty. Ethan's jaw tightened. Who? We don't know yet, but it means Salim already had your face before tonight. The video didn't expose you. It confirmed what he already suspected, that you were alive and that you were living somewhere quiet. Ethan turned back toward the house. Lena had moved to the window. She was watching him now, her arms wrapped around herself. In her eyes was a question he could not answer, with a lie. Then the phone buzzed against his ear. A text message from an unknown number. He pulled it away and saw a single line. We know where your wife works. Ethan's blood turned to ice. The number was not Owen's. It was not anyone he had saved in his phone. It was a message from someone who was already too close. He put the phone back to his ear. Owen? Yeah, they just texted me. They know where Lena works. The line went very quiet. Then Owen spoke, his voice low. Then Solemn didn't wait for Voss. He found a local asset. Ethan, you don't have 48 hours. You might not have 12. Ethan looked back at Lena through the glass. She was still watching him. He could see the fear in her, but now it was not only fear of the man he used to be. It was fear for what was coming. And for the first time in 3 years, he allowed himself to think not like a security auditor, not like a husband, but like the counter-terror operator he had buried. The old voice was very calm. It listed objectives: neutralize the immediate threat, move the target to safety, identify the local asset. And if Salim Haddad wanted to find Ethan Vance, then Ethan Vance would give him exactly what he wanted. A ghost. He walked back into the kitchen. Lena looked up. Who were you talking to? Ethan knelt beside her chair and took her hand. Someone from a life I thought I left behind. Lena, I need you to pack a bag. Right now. We have to leave the house within the hour. Her eyes widened. Why? Because of the video? Because the video woke up something else. People from my past have recognized me. The man who tried to hurt you at the gym is not the problem anymore. There are men who have been looking for me for 3 years. Now they know where I am. And they know where you work. Lena's hand flinched in his. What? Ethan squeezed gently. I know this doesn't make sense right now. I know asking you to trust me after the way I lied about who I am is too much. But I need you to pack a bag, get in the car, and come with me. I will explain everything on the road, not as the man you thought you married, but as the man I actually am. Lena searched his face. For 3 years, she had known him as a steady, gentle, predictable man who fixed the deck and brought her tea when she worked late. She had never seen this version of him, the version whose eyes were terribly calm in the face of warning, the version whose voice did not rise when he said the house was no longer safe. And somehow, she believed him. She stood. I'll get our passports. She walked toward the bedroom, then stopped. Ethan? Yes, who are these people? Ethan stood too. He looked out the front window at the long, dark street. A pair of headlights turned the corner too slowly and then stopped under a burned-out street lamp. They did not turn off. Someone I was never supposed to see again, he said. And they just found us. He killed the kitchen light, pulled Lena away from the window, and told her to move low, avoid the sight lines. They packed in the dark, no chargers, no tablets, nothing that could be tracked. From a false panel in the garage, he removed a thin metal box he had hidden before they were married. Inside were 2 passports, $12,000 in mixed bills, a tactical knife, and a set of car keys Lena had never seen. She did not ask. She simply followed. They left through the back gate, crossed a neighbor's yard, and reached a silver sedan parked 3 blocks away. It had been registered under a shell company. He had kept it for a scenario he had always hoped would never arrive. As they pulled out, the headlights still sat at the end of the street, engine idling, waiting for the truck to move. Ethan turned left, not right, and the dark car stayed behind. He ran 3 green lights, took an alley, and was gone before the watcher could correct course. On the highway, he told her the truth. The operation in Mosul. The dead brother. The leak. The bounty. She listened without interruption, one hand pressed over her mouth. Then she said, so the video didn't just embarrass Rex, it marked you. Ethan nodded. It gave Solem proof that I survived. Until tonight, I was a dead file. Now I'm a face. A name. An address. She stared at the road. Why didn't you tell me any of this? He answered, because I wanted to be the man who fixed decks and made coffee, not the man who whispered to dying men. I thought I could leave him behind. She shook her head. You didn't leave him behind. You hid him. There is a difference. They drove for 3 hours with no destination spoken, only a series of turns Owen texted to a clean phone. Just before dawn, they stopped at a rest area where a man in a gray work jacket leaned against a pickup. He did not approach. He simply tossed a key fob into a trash can as he left. Ethan retrieved it. A white cargo van, parked behind a closed diner, unlocked without a sound. He gave the silver sedan to the knight, wiped it down with a cloth, and walked away with Lena. Inside the van, taped under the rear bench, was a hard case. In it were a satellite phone, a clean laptop, and a black nylon bag containing handcuffs, zip ties, a taser, and a non-lethal sidearm. Lena looked at it and turned away. "Is this who you were?" she asked. "Not all of it," he said. "But enough." That morning, Owen called. The bounty had been increased to $1 million. The local asset had been identified as a private investigator named Marcus Keeley, a man with a record of stalking and witness intimidation. He had been hired through a cutout in Houston and was still sitting on their street, waiting for the truck to move. The police, meanwhile, had questioned Rex. The girlfriend's story was already unraveling. A gym member had uploaded cell phone video showing Rex grabbing Ethan first. 3 other women had filed written complaints about Rex's past conduct. The district attorney declined to pursue charges against the unknown man in the ball cap. But for the first time, a detective wanted to speak to Ethan Vance, not as a suspect, but as a witness. Ethan did not call back. He knew the system would move too slowly. $1 million bounty does not wait for a warrant. Salim had already sent a second asset, a man named Luis Corvo, who had been watching their block since after midnight. Owen had accessed private satellite heat imagery. 2 men, not one. The trap was already set. Ethan made a decision. He told Lena he would take her to the mountain house. She refused. "I am not leaving you." He told her the truth. "If you stay, you make me slower. You are the only hostage he can use. If you disappear, I can do what I was trained to do." For a long moment, she looked like she might fight. Then she asked, "Will you come back?" He said, "I will, but I cannot promise when." They drove west into the mountains. The safe house was not a house. It was a concrete utility building built into the side of a ridge, with a steel door painted to look like rock. Inside there was water, canned food, a generator, and no windows. Owen had secured it years earlier. Ethan gave Lena a phone, a map, and instructions. If she did not hear from him in 48 hours, she was to call a number taped to the inside of a matchbox. That number would reach a former signals officer who would move her again. She hugged him hard enough to crack bones. Then she said, "Don't die in a country where no one knows your name." It was almost the same phrase he had whispered to Rex. He nearly smiled. "I don't plan to." He drove back down the mountain in the van. By the time he reached the edge of the desert, Owen had sent a message through a long dormant dark web channel. "The ghost is willing to meet. One condition: no civilians." He names the place. It was an insult to Salim's pride, but Salim accepted. The location was an abandoned airstrip outside a town barely large enough to have a gas station. The time was set for 11 that night. Ethan knew Salim would not come in person. He would send his best men. That was exactly what Ethan wanted. A message sent in the right language. He arrived at 7. The strip was dark, lined with rusting fuel drums and a collapsed tower. He parked the van behind a berm, changed into worn canvas pants and a dark long-sleeved shirt, and moved through the sagebrush with the ease of a man who had done it in worse places. He did not carry the non-lethal gear. He carried only the knife and a small field kit. At 10:30, a black SUV rolled through the gate. 2 men. Then a second vehicle, a dark sedan, stopped further back. The spotter. Ethan counted them, cataloged their movements, and waited. At 11, he stepped into the open with his hands raised. The 2 men from the SUV approached. One held a rifle, the other a phone. "Kneel," the man with the rifle said. Ethan did not kneel. He kept walking until he was close enough to see the red light on the phone's camera. A voice from the speaker, tinny and thin, said, "So you are the ghost." Ethan did not answer. He looked past the rifle to the man holding the phone. "Tell Salim I know who sold him the file. Tell him the leak was a man named Whitfield." The name was a fiction, but in that moment the two henchmen hesitated. Confusion is a weapon. The man with the rifle shifted. The phone's red light wavered. And Ethan moved. It took fewer than 3 seconds. The rifle never fired. The first man's wrist broke against the weapon's own sling as Ethan turned inside his reach. The second man dropped the phone and reached for a pistol, but Ethan was already behind him, the knife hilt pressing into the soft flesh under his jaw. "Your boss has 2 choices," Ethan said into the dark. "Call it off or I will visit Istanbul before the end of the month." He did not have to yell. The phone, still on the ground, was transmitting live. A few seconds later, the line went dead. Ethan disarmed both men, bound them to the gate with their own belts, and left their phones in a bucket of water. He drove away with no headlights until he hit the main road. He did not believe it was over, but he had sent a message. The next day, Owen confirmed it. Salim's middleman had pulled the bounty. The local asset in the town had been paid and withdrawn. The dark web post was replaced by a single line in Arabic: "There are more important things." Ethan did not let himself hope. But for now, the noose had loosened. He returned to the mountain safe house at dawn. Lena opened the steel door before he could knock. She was pale, but her eyes were steady. "Is it done?" she asked. "No," he said. "But I have bought us time." She took his hand and pulled him inside. They sat in the cold concrete room. No deck to fix, no gym mats, no ordinary life. And she said, "Then we use the time." All of it. Weeks later, the world had moved on. The viral video was reposted, debated, forgotten. Rex filed a civil complaint against the unknown man, but it collapsed when 11 witnesses submitted statements against him. Northline Grappling and Fitness closed permanently after its insurance company launched an investigation into the training culture. Rex was charged with multiple counts of reckless endangerment. He accepted a plea deal that barred him from ever coaching again. The man in the ball cap was never publicly named, though a retired marshal who saw the video said one thing that stuck: that wasn't jiu-jitsu. That was a man trying to control himself. Ethan and Lena did not return to the house. They bought a small property in a valley far from the desert, under a different name, with a different kind of quiet. He still does not talk about Mosul. But now, when he goes for a run or fixes a fence, he leaves a little more of the vault door open. Not because he trusts the world, but because Lena knows what is inside. And sometimes, late at night, when a car slows on the road, he touches the scar above his ribs and listens for the old voice. It is quieter now, but it has never gone silent. The final surprise came 3 months later, when Owen texted a single encrypted line: "The file that exposed your face was pulled by the same man who trained your target in Mosul." He was alive, and he had been waiting for proof. Ethan read the line twice, then deleted it. He looked out at the mountain valley, at Lena reading on the porch, at the life he had almost lost, and he understood. The war had not followed him home. It had been at his door all along, dressed as a jiu-jitsu bully and a waiting headlight. That was the true cost of a past you bury. It does not disappear. It waits for the moment you are happy, then it demands to be remembered. The hardest part of this story is not what happened on the mat. It is what the mat revealed. We pass men like Ethan Vance every day in grocery store aisles, at school drop-off lines, in the next booth at a diner. They wear soft shirts and worn boots. They fix decks. They hold doors open. They speak in calm, unhurried sentences. And somewhere behind their ribs, a vault door stays closed. We believe we know them because we know their routines. But we do not know what happens when a threat wakes the other man. That is the deeper truth of this story. Ethan did not go looking for violence. He spent 3 years actively burying it. But when it found him, he did not have to choose to be dangerous. He already was. The only choice was whether to let someone else control the outcome. And for Lena, the question was never whether she could love him. It was whether she could love the parts of him he hid. That is the more terrifying threshold. and she crossed it in a single night. There is a line from an old military saying, "The more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war." But there is another version that rarely gets printed. The more you hide the war, the more you bleed in peace. Ethan bled quietly for 3 years. He thought the silence was healing. It was not. It was storage. And perhaps the sharpest detail in all of this is not the bounty, the leak, or the brother in Mosul. It is that the entire chain reaction began with a bully who could not stop squeezing after a woman tapped. One man's cowardice unlocked another man's past. That is how quiet men become protagonists in stories they never wanted written. So if you have ever looked at the calmest person in the room and wondered what they are capable of, the answer is usually simple. You do not want to find out. If this story challenged how you think about strength, discipline, or the people who carry invisible wars, there is more where that came from. The algorithm hides stories like this from you on purpose. Do not let it. Subscribe to this channel so the next one reaches you before it disappears. And if you believe some men should never be pushed, share this video with someone who needs to understand why. Stay curious, stay humble, and never mistake a quiet man for a weak one.